how little can you actually eat before your muscle mass just packs its bags and takes a fucking vacation? Like, is one little very sad salad a day going to turn you from jacked to a complete skeleton in 48 hours? Or is there actually a way to eat basically nothing and keep your gains intact? So today I'm going to be breaking down exactly how low you can push your calories without losing muscle, what the science says, look at some real life examples, and why you probably shouldn't even try it unless you're either a complete and utter psycho, or like me when I thought eating 800 calories a day was the move, and just ended up turning into a wet spaghetti noodle with mood swings. So here's the thing, your body doesn't just decide to burn muscle because you skipped lunch that day. It's not that fragile. But if you combine a calorie deficit, low protein, and no resistance training, your body's gonna start cannibalizing your muscle to keep you alive. That's pretty much just the holy trinity of muscle loss. So if you wanna hold on to your muscle while you're in a calorie deficit, you need to signal to your body that you wanna keep it, which means lifting heavy and eating enough protein, especially the lower your calories go. Do that and you can actually hang on to your gains for a pretty long time. Muscle isn't just decorative, it's pretty expensive for your body to maintain. If your body thinks it doesn't need it, or you're just using too much energy, it's gone, which is why resistance training is non-negotiable in a cut, especially an aggressive one. So now let's actually talk about how low you can push things. We're talking starvation mode, but actually getting some protein in here. Enter the protein sparing modified fast, or PSMF, which is basically the crackhead version of a diet. 600 to 800 calories a day, and the protocol entails pretty much just protein shakes, like you're only eating protein here. No carbs, no fats. And yeah, it actually is as miserable as it sounds. It's used for rapid fat loss, and studies show that as long as you're getting enough protein in and still training, you're not gonna totally deflate. And is also backed by some pretty interesting science. In the Minnesota starvation experiment in 1944, what a name. Very glad I was not a participant. They had guys eating less than 1,600 calories a day for months on end, and of course they did lose weight quite rapidly, and while they lost weight fast, their muscle loss was actually minimized with, shocker, enough activity and a high enough protein intake. Now, they still lost muscle during this experiment, but just not as much as you'd expect, which tells us that even with enough protein and getting enough training in, your body is eventually going to tap into muscle in this kind of deficit. And on top of that, you can only hold out for so long. PSMF is not for the faint of heart. It isn't sustainable whatsoever, and you should really only use it in the very short term. Like, I'm talking a couple weeks max, unless you're being coached or supervised. After that point, you're gonna start feeling like complete and utter garbage and start risking muscle loss no matter what. So pretty much if you're gonna do something like this, realistically, it's gonna be like a 3 to 7 day stint after an insane cheat meal or something. During a protocol like this, your training performance is gonna absolutely tank, you're gonna feel weak, your recovery is gonna be non-existent, and mentally, you're in the fucking trenches. Like, this is not a normal human being kind of diet. This is kind of like the stare blankly at yourself for 20 minutes in the mirror every morning kind of diet. So let's get into some real life examples of people that push their calories super low and are still able to maintain their muscle. Example number 1, bodybuilders on prep. These guys get shredded as fuck while eating crazy low calories. For example, I was watching a C-Bum video maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and he briefly mentioned like the lowest he ever brought his calories for an Olympia prep was around the 1,500 mark. He's like, what, like 220, 230 pounds or something? Jacked as fuck. Obviously incredibly active and looks absolutely insane, but he was getting away with eating what they were eating in the fucking starvation experiment. How is this possible? Do Chris Bumstead's genetics break the laws of chemistry? Well, the answer is combined with a very high protein diet, some heavy ass lifting, and keeping the time frames short. No one is eating 1,500 calories a day for fun. When these guys are doing this, it's extremely strategic, very calculated, like their whole life revolves around it, and a very good portion of them significantly rebound up right after the show. Oh wow, you lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks? Yeah, we'll expect to gain it back in 2. Now, while this is a great example, I'm guessing the majority of you guys are not blasting trenbolone. So looking into the natural side of things, an even more interesting example for you guys, medically supervised low-calorie diets. Sometimes for obese patients, doctors will actually prescribe like an 800 to 1200 calorie diet, and they can actually maintain their muscle with light resistance training and a high protein intake. Now, first little point here, these guys don't have a ton of muscle to start with for the most part. So they don't really have that much muscle to lose to begin with. Like if you're a 220 pound bodybuilder, dieting down has to be a lot more calculated because your body is like, holy fucking shit. We have all this extra muscle burning all this extra calories, and we've got to get rid of some of it. We don't need to be 220 pounds lean. So these ridiculous diets actually can work for these guys, because on top of that, when you're very overweight, your body has a ton of stored energy. So you're gonna spare muscle way more easily than someone who's already pretty lean. Next example, the military. Cue the American spirit. During training, sometimes soldiers will end up going through like multi-day fasts. During survival training or going out into the field, they just decide to drop you off in the middle of the jungle one day just because. These guys will sometimes end up going through like multi-day fasts and still hold on to their muscle mass. And by multi-day, usually not longer than 3, unless you're very unlucky. Or you really are just a crayon eater. Now going a little bit further into this, the fact that these fasts are constrained to like a 3-day window typically is like just about short enough for your body to be like, okay, maybe I don't need to get rid of too much muscle here, especially considering a lot of these guys are already used to the intermittent stress. They're active, running around, fucking hiking through the jungle, whatever. They're getting activity in. So again, the kind of recurring theme here is the window's pretty short, and if your protein's high, you're still lifting, being active, you can actually get away with crazy low calories and not just completely shrink down into a skeleton. So if you really don't want to lose muscle, pretty much all you need to do is hike through the jungle until you find a snake and eat it. Anyways, let's get real. I've messed this up before. I basically thought, yo, if I starve myself, I'll lose fat faster. Genius idea, right? And yeah, I did lose fat, but only for like a fucking week. I started feeling like garbage and gaining it all back. I was constantly hungry, tired, moody, and thinking about food 24/7 as if I don't still do that now. So I'd go ultra low on calories, I'm talking sub 1,000, and then because my body just couldn't take it, feel guilty, restrict myself again, and repeat the process. It wasn't sustainable and honestly messed with my head a lot. This kind of extreme dieting can lead to eating behavior very fast. It's like actually the ultimate speed run to getting an eat. And I'm not talking about your Johnson. Though on this kind of diet, you might run into some problems in that department too. So if you're constantly obsessing about food, literally getting anxious about eating, or bouncing between and restricting cycles, that's a massive red flag. Starving yourself doesn't work, and it leads to yo-yo dieting, mental burnout, and you'll either end up fatter than you started or gain all the weight you lost back. Don't be that guy, trust me. So here's the kicker. Yourself is literally the opposite of how I diet now. Right now I'm eating anywhere between like 2,300 to 3,000 calories a day, and I'm still losing fat at a pretty aggressive pace. I'm talking like 1.5 to 2.5 pounds a week. How? I do a ton of activity to compensate for the higher calorie intake. I have a standing desk, and while I'm working or gaming, I just do incline walking on my treadmill because it's convenient and saves me a ton of time. I basically designed my entire setup around combining my cardio with productivity and leisure, so I'm burning calories constantly without even thinking about it. So no more spending 3 hours a day on the Stairmaster. I'm just doing shit at my desk. And then diet-wise, I don't eat conventionally clean at all. I eat junk food and I make it work. I basically just meal prep low-calorie, high-protein versions of all my favorite foods. Pizza, ice cream, chicken tenders, fucking cookies, muffins, you name it. After 3 years of dieting, going from 240 pounds to 160 pounds, I found this is the best strategy for me. And again, losing that weight and gaining the muscle mass took me 3 years, but it could have been way faster if I implemented this strategy sooner and hadn't crash dieted and completely wrecked my mental state early on. So learn from my mistakes. Personal experience aside, I'm gonna talk about how low you can actually go without losing muscle. Here's your cheat sheet. your protein goal should be about 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass. The absolute bare minimum calorie floor here is gonna be about 1,000 to 1,200 calories a day. And again, short term, only if everything is aligned perfectly. So what I'm saying here is your macros and training need to be dialed in. But again, here's the truth, guys. The goal here is not to eat as little as possible. It's to eat as much as you can while still losing fat. That is sustainable. And it's also how you keep your muscle mass and your sanity. So don't be f***ing stupid and eat 1,000 calories a day unless you're a 4'5", 130-pound female. Then maybe, you know, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. Can you eat next to nothing and still keep your muscle? Technically, yeah. But like I keep hammering into your little noggin, high protein, heavy lifting, pure suffering, especially during the workouts, and done within a short time frame. But again, there's no need to put yourself through this, guys. Like, why would you choose yourself over just getting your cardio in while you're working or doing stuff you'd already be doing anyways, like watching TV, eating foods you love, and getting lean without starving? You don't even have to do what I do. Like, just use a moderate deficit, add in some extra walking, and make it easy on yourself. That's all I got for you guys today. Like, subscribe, and join the free Discord, first link in the description, and sign up for my coaching because I'm cool as f***. See you in the next video.